This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're doing well in whatever part of the world you're listening from. You know I appreciate it. You truly are a wonderful audience, which is why I love bringing you these chats with legends like Oscar Dronjak from Hammerfall. Now, the catalyst for the chat with Oscar is twofold. There is an Australian tour scheduled for January 2025. Finally, a major city Australian tour is on the cards. I'll certainly be at the Brisbane show. Bugger all of you listen from Australia, so I'm not going to go through the dates here. Instead, I'll put them in the episode description, as I will the ticket link, the link to purchase tickets. Now, the other reason for the chat with Oscar is due to a new album from Hammerfall, Avenge The Fallen. It's excellent. Of course it is. It's Hammerfall. What else do you expect? Now, this conversation here, it's fast and loose. Whatever topics come up. Okay, of course I address the two-pronged catalyst there, and of course I talk about guitar and career, but there's a lot of other really cool things in here as well. It's just a general chit-chat. Sometimes that happens, and I love it, actually. These are my favourite types of interviews because you just go with the flow. So on that note, here he is. I've been looking forward to this one. Oscar Dronjak from Hammerfall.
Hello.
G'day, mate. How you going?
It's good. How are you?
Not bad. How's the calls been? You know, the Zoomer grind, I call it. How's that going?
Yeah, it's actually been surprisingly fun and easy. This is the last one for today, and I've been doing this for 3 hours now. But it's been nice. I mean, you guys from Australia have this. You're always, of course, you know English because that's your first language. It's easier to speak with you guys, but it's also a little bit of. It's very positive, not like the positive, like, oh, I love Hammerfall, but positive vibe going all the time, you know, and that makes it so much easier to just sit and talk and have a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to do this, you know, that as well. Like I'm someone who grew up with Hammerfall, for example. So for me, this is great. I always mispronounce the Swedish name, so apologies here, but Joachim, is that your singer's name? I spoke to him. Joachim, sorry.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he's heard every variation of that, I'm sure.
Yours is a lot easier, Oscar. I'll give you that.
Yes, it is. Well, the first name is the last name may sometimes.
I'll give it a go. It's Dronjak, right?
Very good.
Okay,
very good. That's actually the best pronunciation I heard.
Well, there you go. I bet you get Dronjak and all sorts of things.
Yes, depending on if you're in France, it's Dronjak. You know, it's very different, but it's a Serbian name, so it's you can pronounce it however you want.
I was going to say my father-in-law's from well, he's passed on, but he was from Croatia. My wife's maiden name is Hojbat, so so with the J in it, so as soon as I saw the J, I thought, oh, you must have grandparents or parents from that part of the world anyway.
Yeah, my dad was from Yugoslavia, so that's why.
Does he call it Yugoslavia though, or Serbia?
No, well, he's been dead for 30 years.
Oh, well, sorry about that. But, yeah.
No, don't worry about it. It's 98, I think it was. So it's a long time. But I don't know. He died while the wounds from the war were still very fresh. So it was, I think. And I was never. They got divorced in the 70s, so I didn't really. I knew him, of course. We saw each other a couple of times every year, but it was never any regular thing, especially not at the end, you know. So for me, it's a loss, of course, but it was. I didn't feel like my dad died back then, because it was never really my dad in that sense that he was there and helped you with stuff growing up and shit, you know. It was my father, but not my dad. Maybe if you know what I mean, if that makes any sense. But I would have loved for him to be alive. Well, he would have been fucking 88 or some shit like that today. It would have been old now. But if he would have been alive during the Olympics, because he would have been so proud of some of the achievements. And I know he loved sport. He was a professional basketball player for a while in France. Yeah, long before I was born, of course. But he was very, very sports interested. So he was watching Eurosport every day. It was when he was home on TV. The TV was on all day. It was always sports. So he would have loved to see the like Djokovic, for example, to win the gold finally. I just watched before I did the interviews. I watched the water polo final between Serbia and Croatia, and it was a very good match. And I've never followed water polo before, but I watched a couple of games during the Olympics now because I thought it must be one of the hardest sports to do. Like MMA, of course, is really hard too. Especially when you're, but training for this and working on that, they must be tough guys. These guys, tall, big, tough people you wouldn't want to be in the competing for the ball with in the water scenario. I would never want to do that. I have the utmost respect for all of them. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, except for that bloody woman from my country, Australia, who did the breakdancing. Did you see that? Have you seen that yet?
I missed that one.
After this call, go on and check it out, mate. You couldn't make this stuff up. She's a late 30s, so basically, she's approaching 40. Not that age should have anything to do with anything, but it kind of does in this situation because you've got to be very limber and athletic, and you've got to be strong, physically strong to do breakdancing as well. But she did the sort of stuff and these kangaroo hops, and it was fucking embarrassing. As Australians, we're more honestly, we are mortified at this woman, how we pay for her as a taxpayer to go over there with a huge contingent on the Australian team. And then she gets up there and says something like, I didn't think I could compete anyway. It's like, well, don't make a fool out of the rest of us.
I see what you mean. Australia's been in a lot of finals. They've done well in a lot of sports in this Olympics. The thing is, I watch more of this Olympics than I have probably ever, but maybe not, at least not since I was a kid, watching, following everything. So I watch a lot this Olympics, and Australia seems to pop up all the time in every competition.
Yeah. What do you put that down to in terms of your viewing habits this time around? You're just more interested or something else?
It's more interested. Yes. And he's playing sports, football and ice hockey. So he's, he's not glued to the television, but he's at least interested in these things. So that's been an evolution for me, but also time. I have spent about a month or 3 weeks at home now, and that happened to be during the Olympics. So it was just nice because I knew this is time to relax, take it easy. So I just knew that I could easily just put on Olympics and watch some stuff. Now, the funny thing is, I have a new favorite sport, more or less, which is volleyball. I didn't know how much fun that was. This is how fun I thought it was in the end. I found myself watching a game between Turkey and fucking Dominican Republic or something like that in women's volleyball. That's how interested I was in volleyball in this tournament. I went back. I purposely, because we were did shows this weekend when the finals were in the bronze match. So I purposely shielded myself off. I didn't check any results so I could watch the games because in Europe they were aired on Eurosport, but also on Max, the streaming service, which I happen to have. So I could watch everything whenever I wanted to, which is the best way to watch any sports event. You can watch it, at a click of a button. That's instead of having to be there at 9:30 when the fucking game starts when you're on a plane somewhere, So it was brilliant. So I went back and watched those at the hotel room this weekend, but all the games. I didn't know anything about any results. I just knew I wanted to watch the volleyball games. I'm so impressed with these athletes. Well, I'm impressed with anybody who competes in the Olympics, even your Australian breakdancer, I think. Yeah, but
I'll send her to Sweden.
Yeah, well, she's welcome. But it's really cool. I love sports, and I had a good time following it. That's how you follow the big important games. Is you're invested into it, and sometimes you can't. For various reasons, I have no time or whatever it is. But this time, it sort of felt perfectly. So I had a great time watching this.
Yeah, just talking about nations and that sort of thing. Just being half Serbian, do you get claimed by these Serb fans as being Serbian?
Yeah, I do, which is funny because the thing is, we never went to Serbia when my dad was alive. He died in '98, so we all barely started our career with Hammerfall back then. But the first time we went was 2007, and I remember that because I would have liked to ask him stuff. He lived in Belgrade, he grew up in Belgrade, and we went to Belgrade to play, and I would have loved to just talk to him and see where did you hang out, because it looked. It looked like there were areas there where probably had been there from his youth,
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to him about that. I knew he would have been very proud of me going there. But the one thing is when Joachim, he presents the band on stage, right? So he says on bass, this is Fredrik or whatever. And when it came time to introduce me at that show, he said, this guy is half Swedish and half Serbian. And I thought the roof was going to explode. This was in 2007. They were just, I've never heard that wild crowd like that before in my life. And what made me very proud too. I mean, obviously, I've never been there. I don't have any real connection. I don't speak the language. My only real connection is my father. But it's still a matter of national pride. It's hard to get out of that. Because, especially with sports and stuff, because that's how if nations compete against nations, if you have some sort of link to the other nation, then it's easy to root for them, obviously. And that just makes me feel proud, because even though I had never felt anything other than Swedish, really, it still has my dad sure was not felt other than Swedish. So for him, it's fun to have that sort of link to another team, especially when Sweden is not in we had the Euros 24 now in June. Sweden didn't qualify, but Serbia did. So of course I was rooting for Serbia. They didn't go anywhere. They lost 2 games and went out, but it doesn't matter. It still has fun to have something to cling on to that means something to you.
Indeed, yeah. Well, look, you are coming down to Australia, so there might be a few Serbian flags in the audience there, because there's a lot of people from the Balkan regions. Or Croatia's huge in Australia.
Yeah.
There's the soccer teams, the suburban soccer teams are usually like your ethnic background. So there's lots of Serb, Greek, Italian, Croat soccer teams, this sort of thing. Yeah. But they're like
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Australia.
Right? Yeah.
Something like my personal situation's common. Like I'm rare, I'm Australian. That's nothing else. Australian.
Yeah, okay.
But most people are like my wife or my kids, I suppose you'd call it that too, where you've got a mix of different things these days. So people still can exactly the way you're talking about it. Actually, is that that pride from a heritage perspective, if you like. So don't be too surprised if after this chat there's a few Serbian flags in the crowd. Very
cool. I'm going to be looking forward to that very much.
Yeah, but it's taken. I read the presser obviously, and it talks about this is the first or second visit in the history of the band's existence, if you like. So has it just been? You do have fans down here, and I'm sure you're aware of that because of what happened on social media. But is it logistics or something else that's meant that you've only been down here once before?
I think it's more than anything a case of us not having the right contacts, the right people to work with. Now we do have an Australian guy as part of our management. We have an American booking agent who also has connections in Australia, which is why this tour happened in the first place. So it's mostly a matter of that. I also think it's a matter of Australia not being ready, really. But this, I don't know. I said this in other interviews today, but I get the feeling that Australia was not really ready for a lot of melodic metal when Hammerfall was at its peak, 15 years ago or whatever it was. So I think that's another part of it. Mostly it's our fault, but I think we didn't. If we would have felt that Australia, they love what we do, they love heavy metal music, let's go down there, then we would have done it, But since it was such a struggle to probably make it happen back then. For that's the reason, basically.
No, it's a sound read on the picture, actually, that one there.
Yeah.
I don't know why, like, sadistic execution comes from Sydney, for example. We seem to go toward that more extreme, rabid sort of thing.
Yeah.
But look, I've always, when I say always, I remember hearing Gamma Ray and then wanting to find another band like Gamma Ray, and I came across you guys. And one of the things that really impressed me about the band, and I know this is true for a lot of people, but I'm a muso, so I love your guitar playing. And back in those days, I'm talking about the late 90s, and when Renegade came out, it was the first time I'd really heard that style of guitar playing before, because I know that you or Joachim have mentioned in other interviews that the band isn't a power metal band, it's a heavy metal band, and you really impressed that point. And I got to say, I've been grateful for that, because I didn't identify, and I know a lot of, again, not to repeat myself, but a lot of people feel the same way. You guys are carrying the traditional flag, and your guitar playing is at the center of that. So yeah, I mean, I think you'll find that a lot of musicians in Australia really appreciate what you do.
Oh shit! Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's we've always been, ever since we started. Basically, we've been we have had the least credibility of any band I ever know among other musicians. Now it's getting to the point where people don't care that much anymore, and they actually are. We actually got more credibility now with people than we have in our whole career. But it's always been, that's the funny thing. It's always been cool to hate Hammerfall. Reason, just hate it because it's the cool thing to do, and that lived on for a long time. It lived on for many years, and especially among musicians. But now I think nowadays people aren't so afraid to embrace stuff either. They come up to us and also it's a matter of maturity, of course. If you're young and up and coming and you think you may be a bit jealous of success in terms of, because Hammerfall came from nowhere and got big quick. That didn't mean that we as musicians came from nowhere. We have struggled for many years playing shit, but it went really fast from the recording of the first album till we had any sort of success. And I think that rubbed a lot of musicians the wrong way, who had been toiling away and never achieved the same type of level. But nowadays, of course, it's different. People mature, they grow out of the childish behavior, and of course that is the reason why things have turned around a little bit. But I'm happy to hear that. Hopefully, we get some good comments from musicians as well in Australia then.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, because we must be so far. I'm from the Metal Maniacs Terrorizer era. Okay, that's when that's where a lot of my
right.
Not necessarily the internet. I mean, I've read the interviews and listened to the podcast, but a lot of my innate knowledge comes from reading those two magazines in particular. And
right.
I don't remember them heaping shit on you at all. But maybe we were too far away in Australia to really get that vibe. I mean, for example, I just thought you guys were Chuck Schuldiner anointed you guys. People forget that.
Yeah, no, he was a big fan. For the brief period we knew him before he unfortunately died. But yeah, he was also a visionary. I think he came from the same roots as we did, about our age. But he also he was in the process of bringing back melodies and stuff as well. With that. What was the name of that band? Exactly. Yeah. Which, I mean, is very similar to Death in a lot of ways, but it also very dissimilar to Death in a lot of ways. And I think that was the reason why he sort of embraced Hammerfall too, because we came at a time when he was at that mindset of trying to do those sorts of things. And of course, like I said, we came from the same musical background, grew up around the same time. Different continents, but still, heavy metal was universal back then. So it was, and the thing is also, he was touring with him and getting to know him was a huge thing for me, because I was playing death metal for a lot of years. I was a guitar player and a singer, and he was always top 3 on any of my top singer lists of death metal. Always top 3 ever since I started, basically. And it was a huge deal for me to get to know him and talk to him a little bit and tour with him and watch him perform every night. You know, that was really cool as hell to do that. And on top of everything, of course, he is a great human being. That was really nice to, you know, cool to hang around with, fun to talk to and stuff. And the sad thing was, like, we did this tour in '98 together with Death in the US, and we ended it in December, and I think in January or so, a couple of months at the most after that, he was diagnosed, and I think a year later he was dead. So it went really, really fast for him at the end, unfortunately.
You're not wrong. Yeah. But I mean, that's really important, though. I mean, you were, as I say, people forget that you were the band that he basically anointed. I mean, by the tour I'm talking about, you did that big tour across the United States with him. And he was talking you up in the media too. Now I remember, that's how I got onto you guys, was the recommendation of Chuck. And frankly, I mean, I know he's been deified in Death as what happens with Cliff Burton and all of them, but people weren't paying that much attention to him back then. I got to be honest, it's just what was going on. I remember the fans, the hardcore extreme metal people were, but not the broader fan base. They probably didn't even know what his bloody name is, like what it is these days. But to have somebody like that give you the tip of the hat, but it was deeper than that, I thought. But so did he give you? I'm not going to say advice, but what type of conversations do you remember having with him when you were on the road?
Fuck! It's 26 years ago. But I mean, we just had a good time. You know, that we hung out with. There were four members in the band. It was Chuck, Richard, Shannon, and we call him CB. Shannon and CB. When the bass player was, I don't remember his first name, but we call him CB. But there was just a fun vibe. We shared a bus also, which helps, you know, to get closer together. But we just hung out and talked about bullshit, about metal, about life, about everything. Just like we were friends, and we became friends after that tour. So that was, I still to this day mention this tour as one of the high points of tour-wise for Hammerfall's career for me, because of that. We just had such a good time. And, you know, Richard lives in New York now. He works on the Howard Stern show. Yeah, he's a regular on there. So every time we go to New York, I send him a text and see me if he wants to hang out, because they record the show, like he has to get up at 3 or something in the morning. So he never goes to the concert that we do, but we hang out and we have lunch, or, you know, talk a little bit during the day. Maybe he comes and say hi to sound check or something. That usually happens for the most part every time we tour there. So we still keep in touch with him. It was just a happy vibe, you know, happy tour vibe.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's an awesome story, that one. It's awesome that you kept that relationship intact, though, because, I mean, that's, to your point, that's 26 years ago and you're still buddies. Yeah.
Every Christmas, more or less, one of us sends the other one either like a gift or something like a snippet from YouTube or something from the movie National Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation. Yes, we watched that. The thing we toured from October till December. So it was like we had a bunch of Christmas stuff going on the bus, and we watched this movie a million times. And it's still, and of course, I still watch it almost every Christmas because it's so much fun. It's such a funny movie, we, of course, both, everybody who's seen this movie a couple of times, you know what happens. And have you seen it?
I love it. I'm like you. I watch it every Christmas too.
Right, cool, great. So the main scene that we sort of send back and forth is when I don't remember Randy Quaid. I don't remember what the brother of his wife of Chevy Chase's wife. I don't remember his name now. But when
Randy Quaid's character,
yeah, exactly. When he empties out the caravan into the sewer, and he says, looking at the neighbor, it's like, "Shitter's full." And it's just the funniest line ever.
Yeah, that is a couple of films. Yeah, well, there's a couple of films like that you can just watch again and again.
Yes, very
They're
much.
perfect.
Yeah, I have a few of those. This is funny. When we grew up in the 80s, we had a few movie nights that almost always comprised of the same movies for some reason. We did this not every week, but we did it regularly, and it was always Airplane 1 and 2,
Yes.
and the Blazing Saddles. And usually the Naked Gun snuck itself in there somehow. One or two of those movies too, and Top Secret. We watched that a lot too.
Oh yes,
Like
Val
all
Kilmer.
those, those. Yeah, exactly. All those weird movies that they present a proper scenery, and then somebody does something really out of character, or not out of character. That doesn't jive with the rest of the scene. We always used to love those kinds of movies when we grew up. So yeah, still to this day, I mean, there's no movie funnier than Blazing Saddles for me.
Yeah,
I think me, myself, and Irene comes very close. That's another movie we watched a lot on tour when that came out. But otherwise, Blazing Saddles is number one for me in terms of humor ever.
What about Jim Carrey's Cable Guy? Have you seen that? Have you? What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I think almost. I mean, he used to. I always used to say when he came, because I love the Pet Detective movies so much and everything. I mean, he's done nothing wrong. He's done almost always great movies when he's funny. Because the thing is, even when he tried to do serious movies, you can't take him seriously because everything he says sounds like he could be joking or be satirical or whatever. It's very hard to take him seriously. But he's also, at least that's how I felt. There was one movie he was doing a police thing. I don't remember what it was, but that's a scene I'm thinking of. Is he can't be 100% serious 100% of the time because he's that's it. But I love to watch him anyway. I always used to say he was, if anybody was if they ever was gonna make a movie about my life, I would like him to play the main character, to play me, because then at least I would know that the movie would be hilarious no matter what happened.
Yeah,
that was always my reasoning because I love him. And my son is 10, like I said, and I played him Dumb and Dumber for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Because I told him about that scene where the most annoying sound in the world when they're sitting in the cab, and he laughs so hard. Exactly, he laughs so hard at that shit still. And so I'm actually going to we're going to watch Pet Detective next. I'm not sure when, but we are going to watch it, and I'm sure he's going to love those antics. The weirdness of Ace Ventura is unbelievable.
Well, since you're right into comedy, I've got to ask, what do you think's funnier, or are they inseparable, Borat or Bruno?
Borat. They're not inseparable because I watched Borat before it became a movie. I watched the ADELAIDE show, and Borat was a character on there, which did this exact same thing he did in the movie but in England, in the UK. With British, stuffed politicians and whatever. So for me, it's always going to be Borat because I loved him before he became like a movie star. But Bruno is funny too. Borat is easier to laugh at, but Bruno is more. He goes against the grain more.
Yeah,
especially with like Southern Americans and stuff. But it's more on the nose. What I like about Borat is that it sometimes takes very long time for the people to understand that this is a really weird guy. I can't believe I let him into my house or in my whatever it is they are. But he's fooled them with his niceness and his enthusiasm, his naivety. I think that's what I love about Borat. I used to have his melody, that to do. I used to have that as a ringtone for my phone for years.
Right. Yeah, classic. Yeah, far out. Oh man, I could talk movies all night. Honestly, yeah, I love comedy too. I just there's not enough comedy in the world. We got our awareness is unfortunately so heightened these days, isn't it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
gone
no,
out.
so I lost one of them. I can still hear you. Sorry.
No, you're right. You're right. Just, people doom scroll and there's so much that happens and there is so much going wrong. We know that. I'm not trying to underplay that. God, I talk about it enough.
No, I know exactly what you mean. You got to be able to laugh. That's why I love stand-up comedians like Jimmy Carr or Ricky Gervais, the British guys.
Absolutely.
Because they make fun of stuff. You're not supposed to make fun of that anymore, but that's why it's funny. That's why it's funny because they do it. I mean, they are jokes. That's what the people don't need to remember. They're not opinions. They're jokes about opinions. That's exactly the funny thing about it.
Oh, I can see you've been on tour a lot. Yeah. I mean, you've got to keep the sense of humor in that way. Yeah. Hey, it sounds like, I've spoken to, you're one of the last people I actually wanted to speak to that was on my bucket list. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity for that reason alone. But,
thank you.
I've spoken to Jesper and I've spoken to Mikael, Stanne, and they were all part of the Hammerfall story, as you are completely aware, because they were bandmates early on for you. But how do I frame this question? What are your thoughts? Hammerfall spawned about 4 or 5 other bands. I'm talking Syra. I'm just talking about legacy bands where people started in Hammerfall, Dark Tranquility. The big one is In Flames, but I know there are other bands there as well. So, but when you go back to those very early days working with people like Jesper, and I mean, he's had a tremendous career as a guitarist, and he's a tremendous fella too. As I say, my conversation's only recent with him, but what are your memories of those early days about working with Jesper and Mikael?
Well, it's we were all we're almost the same age. We came up together. We were in we're all helping to shape the death metal scene at that time. Because I was in that with a band with Jesper in a band called Ceremonial Oath before I formed Hammerfall, and so it's hard to differentiate because we were just friends hanging out, doing what friends do. Write music together sometimes or whatever it is. So for us, it was for me at least. It's I mean, we weren't children, but they're still they feel like childhood memories to me still, even though we were like 18 or whatever. So I have a lot of great memories. Writing music with Jesper was really cool because he's such a great musician. I haven't done it in years now, but we used to write a lot of music together in the 90s, and he was fabulous to work with because we had the same mindset in terms of what their end products should be. So it's very easy to write with him. Plus, he's fucking amazing instrumentalist and he knows how to do all kinds of shit. So he's really cool to work with him. What he was, but I never really worked with Mikael in terms of writing songs and stuff. We played together, but that's another thing. We still friends, all of us. When I went to see the Halo Effect just a couple of weeks ago, just to watch some songs that they did, because I never seen them play live. I only heard the music, but I never saw them live before, and we happened to be on the same festival. So, of course, I got to see watch them play, and then hung out and had a few beers before our show, and after our show too. So it feels like we didn't feel like teenagers again, but it still feels like we've known each other for a long time. It's easy, nice and easy going.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, have I got time for a couple more questions, or have you got to head off? No dramas either way.
No, I actually don't. I have time. This is the last one. So
okay.
The next thing I'm going to do is go swimming in a lake with my son. So he's waiting for me to do that. But,
I go swimming all the times. Yeah, you're a swimmer, are you? Is that what you do?
Well, no. I mean, he likes to. He can be in there forever. So I accompany him more than anything. I like to be, jump in the water and then a couple of times, and then I'm out. I don't like being. I get too cold easily, and the water here. I talked to somebody in another interview today. Said it's so cold in here. Here in Australia right now. And I said, it's 15 degrees centigrade. It's like, that's a pretty okay summer day for me, Not really, but it's not that far off from a good summer day either.
We're ridiculous. I've learned, I'm in touch with people, as I say, all over the world, or just through the podcast in Serbia and Iceland, and people laugh at me when I say it's cold, and they ask me, it's at 19 degrees Celsius or something, and they just shut up,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's shorts and t-shirt weather for us.
yeah. Oh, look, it can get, when I say cold here, you'll laugh again. It's 5 or 6 degrees is about as cold as it gets overnight, but that's overnight.
Yeah, right.
It won't get
Do
like
you
that.
have centigrades, or do you do the Fahrenheit scale?
No,
Which one do you
Celsius,
use?
centigrade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, Celsius. Yeah.
Most Australians wouldn't know what Fahrenheit converts into.
Good.
Like they know it's a unit
I
of
was,
measurement. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird that scale. It's very hard to convert them between each other.
Yeah, well, we are basically British. Our whole system
Right,
is set up on that.
Yeah.
So whatever they've done, we've just taken. Well, we were, colony right up until 1901. So,
Right.
we're still part of the Commonwealth. So
right.
How do you feel like it's your output's very consistent. So it's not that there's a good or a bad release, but Avenge of the Fallen, I've had a couple of listens to it because John sent it through to me this afternoon, and just sounds like another great Hammerfall album, to be quite honest with you. So I'm not sure I can add much more than that, like framing a question better than that. But does it feel the same way to you?
Yeah, I mean, every time we write an album, put together an album, and record it, what I would like people to feel when they hear it is I would like them to feel familiar with the style, but I want them to feel fresh, that the songs to feel fresh to their ears, if that makes any sense. Because we're never going to experiment with a bunch of different stuff just to see what happens. That's never been the way we do things with Hammerfall. It's always been this type of band. We're going to be a heavy metal band from the day we were born to the day we die. That's our attitude. And so I understand why people can look at Hammerfall and say, oh, this just sounds, if you don't like the music, it's very easy to say that all the albums sound the same. But you can do that with anything, I guess. But for that, it is. I know that. But that's also not a concern of mine, because as long as the one album doesn't sound exactly the same as the other, which I know they don't, then I'm happy with it, because we try to record the best heavy metal album that we can every time. And sometimes we succeed better than other times. This time I feel like we had succeeded very well with it. I think this album is, it's got a great diversity, a great, the songwriting is complements the songs complement each other very well. Production is top notch. This probably is the best production we had in a while. I mean, we always try to do it better and better every time, but I feel we succeeded really great this time with that. But as far as the music goes, these are songs that mean a lot to me, all of them. And it's the one good thing was when we put together the set list, and we have one bonus track which ended up on the digipack or digipack version of the album. But the 10 songs that are on the vinyl and on the regular CD, that if you took one song away, it sort of made the whole boat canter a little bit, and that for me as a songwriter, that was a great thing, because that means that all of the songs are valuable for the whole of the album. And I'm like, there are some songs that stand out to me more than others, but I don't think that there's any second on the entire record that I don't think this is the best we could have done at this point in time. And it stands up with almost any of our other albums or songs. And that's how I feel anyway.
The production is fantastic. As I say, I've only had 2 listens to it, but I on purpose listened to it on my MacBook Pro speakers, because good albums shine through on there, because it's a tiny speaker on that. And I noticed it. You know what I noticed is depth, huge amount of depth. Yeah. Did you do something special to achieve that?
Not that I know. I think this comes from the mixing and the mastering, which is done by Fredrik Nordström. And I think maybe because I know he's told us when we recorded the drums and he had heard the songs and we started recording the guitars and bass, he said to us that, guys, you guys have really taken it a couple of steps up this time. And now I feel pressured because of the mix. I need to put on my finest mixing shoes and do my best work. He felt a little bit of pressure from that, which is great. And I think that's why he pulled up some things that maybe he has done before. I don't know about the depth because I don't know how that works really, but I think he wanted to blow everybody away with the mix as well, not just the rest of the stuff, I think. And I think he succeeded in that very well.
Yeah, look, a lot of heavy metal albums suffer, and I know you will know what I mean when I say this. They suffer from everything's competing. There seems to be this preoccupation with very flat sounds, not four-dimensional sounds, from a metaphorical perspective, I'm talking about that. But you've achieved it on this one here, and it sounds brilliant, and your music would bloody suffer from a shitty production.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never really thought about it that way, but the thing is, I grew up in the 80s. I grew up loving heavy metal music in the 80s, and of course, 80s productions were very different. They could vary a lot.
Reverb,
but even if you had money, if you had money, it could vary a lot. But if you didn't have money to produce a good production, you get stuck with whatever you had. And I'm a big fan of German heavy metal from the 80s. And back then, it was a good song. I didn't care about the production. I was young. I was just wanting to listen to it. So. But today you can't have that outlook anymore. If you have an album that sounds good, that sounds bad today, it's never going to get anywhere because it's so easy to do an album that sounds really powerful, even from your own bedroom, basically, if you have the right equipment, the right software, I guess. We always try to bring that depth and that power to it, but I'm not a producer. I'm not a technical guy really at all. So I don't know how to achieve those sort of things. That's why we have Fredrik and Pontus Norgren, the guitar player of Hammerfall. He's also very good at that stuff. To have ideas that I know what we can do next time to change it up a little bit. And I found this new thing that works well for this, whatever it is. They always keep up with that. I know the only thing I know is when I'm happy with the sound. Then now it sounds good. Then I can. But how to get there, I'm not so sure. Then I need the other guys.
Hey, when you look back over, if I can call it your career, your time in Hammerfall and your time spent being a musician, what do you think gives you the greatest sense of, it's not pride and it's not really accomplishment either because your whole career has been very accomplished in that way, but what do you look back on and what gives you the greatest sense of fulfillment, I suppose?
There's two things. One, when I complete writing a song that I have a really good gut feeling about, that I feel like, yeah, this is a fucking good song. That sometimes I have that. Sometimes that feeling comes when you record it. You never know. But I always have a feeling these songs are good Hammerfall songs, but sometimes you feel like this is a fucking good song. Sometimes, yeah, that feeling. That is a wonderful feeling. Finalizing a song they worked on for a while, and the end result is great, or it's going to be great once we record it. That is a really wonderful feeling. The other feeling that I have is when people come up to us and say, like fans, obviously, come up to us and say, well, I first discovered metal music through you with this album. And then I'm listening to this and that music. And they didn't know heavy metal before. They got into it with Hammerfall, and now they love it, a lot of other bands. That happens a lot to us, and that makes me feel prouder than anything. Then we have accomplished a lot, I think. I always say during the even 90s and early 2000s, I always said, if you just give heavy metal a chance, it's not for everybody, but there much more people will like it than they think. If you just open your ears a little bit. And I think that that is something that we have helped push out to the world, and that makes me very proud.
You're the fella at the center of a band that brought heavy metal. Certainly, were one of the key bands that brought heavy metal back into the spotlight after the 90s. So you've got a heck of a story to tell. So have you been approached to write a biography or to tell your story in that way?
I actually did already.
Oh, shit, sorry.
It's not. There's no way for you to know because it's only available in Swedish. But I spent about 6 months, maybe more, maybe 8 months. Probably about a year if you count research and stuff and interviews that I did with other band members But I did this back in 2013 already, when we had a little bit of a break with Hammerfall. That was how I spent my break, to go back to do. It's a biography about my life, but it's also, my life is mostly about Hammerfall. So the biography is called The Legend of Hammerfall, and it deals with a couple of chapters from my life until Hammerfall, and then the rest is the Hammerfall stuff. So I actually did that already once, and it was very an interesting time in my life, because I just turned 40. Then when you 40, look back on things in a different way, maybe, and it was really cleansing to go through the entire career in great detail, which is what I did. Everything you've done, everything that happened to you, and write about it. And it was really that helped me turn a corner a lot, and helped me appreciate what we had, but also appreciate what we're going to do in the future. It was very cool. And plus, I got to now I can call myself an author too, because I wrote every damn word myself.
Yeah.
Well, no ghost writer. Everything was written by me.
Well, look, I don't have to tell you that it's something that we in the English-speaking world would love to read. So have you got plans on redoing it?
I don't have any plans. I would love for it to be available in at least English, but hopefully German maybe also. But now it's been such a long time since I wrote it. Not the label. What do you say? The
publisher.
Yeah, publisher had tried to. Actually, there was talks right before the pandemic. He was. We were talking. It's a small publisher in Stockholm, but we were talking about finally doing the translation to English. He had some ideas about to do it, and people who want to work it with and stuff. But then the pandemic hit, and then I didn't hear anything else from him about that. So I would love for it to be available, but then that would also mean that I would have to write about the last 10 years, which I don't know. That's how that's going to be. It would. There's a lot of things that happened, but I don't have a great recollection of it in the same way that I did from the early stuff, because I was writing shit like that. I had a lot of memories saved from those days. But we'll see. I would love for it to be able to put out. Maybe I'll send him a message, see if he has any plans to do it again now, and see what he wants to do. It might be a good idea.
Well, if you can write yourself, like I've just ghost written a Norwegian black metal's biography, black metal musician's biography.
Cool.
And the stories are just extraordinary. They're just for fans like me who are into the music in the 90s and have kept the interest. Let's face it, our lives continue, but our interest stays. And that's we're at that age where we want to read about that era as well firsthand. And so I just encourage you, mate, you wouldn't be short of an audience, put it that way.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm going to tell the publisher that and see what he says.
Mate, I better let you get on with things and enjoy that swim in that hopefully not too cold lake there with your son. It's been fantastic to catch up, mate. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. It's been a really good interview. I can't wait to get into the 18-degree water.
Well, we'll see you down here,
yeah, maybe 19 or 20. I would be very surprised if it's more than 20. It usually isn't. So, but it's fine. Like 18 to 20, it's okay. I'm not staying in there long, but it'll be that's why you can't walk in. I have to jump.
Correct.
Otherwise,
you're right. I know. I swim 4 times a week, and you just got to jump in. It's you're never waiting. You just jump in, and the first 10 seconds suck, but then you're used to it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
No worries. Well, thanks very much again, brother. Cheers.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Take care.
Gotcha.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. I hope that book comes out sometime soon. Oscar Dronjak, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I meant what I said in the middle there, or toward the end, I should say, about Oscar being at the center of a band which helped bring heavy metal back into the limelight, as far as I'm concerned. That is undisputed. I remember back in those days. I remember what it was like. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not even saying it was even better than now. It was just what it was like back then. Heavy metal really had to fight to be on even small club stages, particularly here in Australia. But I remember buying Hammerfall's Renegade album when I was in the United States. I think I bought it when I was in San Diego. Had to ask a bloke for directions to the record store. Had to ask two people. The first guy pretended I couldn't speak English. Either he couldn't understand me or something else happened. I don't know. Probably on the psychiatric spectrum, I suggest. The second bloke, I remember this, he was very helpful. Very helpful. I think he'd seen what happened when I asked for directions from the first bloke. But this is back in the days before the internet really became a huge thing. Not a lot of people in the United States had met an Australian. I think that's what happened. But anyway, maybe I'm just being too nice. Maybe he was just a cunt. All right. But Hammerfall, man, when I think of Hammerfall, I think about my trip back then across the United States, and brings back some fond memories, I must say. All right, so that's it from me. Plenty more chats over at scarsandguitars.com if you're interested. You know the drill by now, but if you don't, just by chance you've listened up to this point and you're unfamiliar with what it is that I do, well, I dive deep. We go there on this show. I go there. The royal we. We. Cradle of Filth, Testament, Members of Death, Tim Amar. Talking about death there in that chat there, I have spoken to Ralph Santola, who's passed, and so has Tim Amar, the singer in Control Denied, who we mentioned there. Very sad. But yeah, all of the chats, they're all up there. They're all up there. And in some instances, I'm the only one to talk to, or certainly the first person to talk to, Stuart Anstis from Cradle of Filth. Yeah, check it out. All right. Won't hold you up. As I said, my name's Andrew Mikael Smith, and I'm the host of Scars and Guitars. Until the next one, it's a very goodbye for now.